the United Nations have made a statement. They put out a international network for immediate release. It's called the International Human Rights Network intervenes in case challenging large-scale disconnection of water supply to tens of thousands of low-income residents in Detroit. Now, everybody's aware that the United Nations came in here the latter part of last year, and they compiled a scaling attack on the government of Detroit, the mayors, and the better yet, of the state of Michigan. We made it clear that it wasn't the governor per se; it was the state of Michigan, because the governor is the one that brought in the so-called emergency manager. But this was released on February 9th, 2015. International Network for Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, a global network of over 220 groups and 50 individual advocates from around the world working to secure economic and social justice through human rights, has requested leave from the United States District Court. This is moving in to district court to be recognized as a amicus curiae in the case of Lindy EAL versus City of Detroit. All it amounts to is that there is going to be a federal case into the United States District Court in support of residents challenging the City of Detroit's decision to cut off water supply to thousands of households unable to pay their bills. This is very important. This is very important. As detailed in the plaintiff's complaint, by the end of August 2014, the City of Detroit had disconnected approximately 30,000 households, low-income persons and persons living in poverty, from the municipal water supply and sewage service, leaving them without access to drinking water and water for toilets and basic sanitation. This network, through its brief, seeks to bolster the complaint. They're joining in with the complaint, the legal challenge, by highlighting that the disconnection for inability to pay violate a range of legal obligation applicable to the United States under key international human rights treaties. At the same time, the network contends that Detroit City Charter, which includes a Declaration of Rights recognizing rights to water, sanitation, and decent housing, must be respected, pursuant to long-established principles of both U.S. law and international law. Relevant domestic laws must be interpreted with treaty obligations. Chris Grove, executive director, said access to justice is required for violations of human rights, and we welcome the opportunity to assist United States District Court with material relevant to consideration of the issues at stake. These issues impact the health, security, and human dignity of thousands of Detroit residents and implicate our vision of social justice, of a social justice society. A number of human rights are arguably violated by the disconnection, including rights to water, sanitation, adequate housing, health, life, freedom, and from cruel and let me get back. Where you at? Cruel and inhumane treatment and discrimination. So I will keep you posted. Tuesday, when I do my show, I'll get more information. I will try and have, I could probably get someone from the welfare rights to be on the show Tuesday at 7 o'clock, and we will get into this more in detail. All right. Right now, I'd like to welcome our guest from Minnesota, a young man who has been following my show, my programs, and does some extensive research on his own. His name is Rory Lucas. Are you there, Rory?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Very clear, very loud, very on the point. Now,
all right. It's good to be here this afternoon. I listened to your announcement about the UN. I was wondering where you was going with that, and then when you went there, it sounds very interesting, but it almost ties into what we're going to talk about today when you mentioned the word treaties.
That's right. I was trying to use what they call in show business, segue. Segue.
Yeah.
Yes, I was attempting to do a segue to come right in to your presentation. And I want to say to you, Roy, that I am very appreciative of your support of the show. And you and I have several other callers who give me a lot of information and send me on the trail of research. And I think you can verify that once you get into this corrupt historical revisionation of so-called American history, it opens up such a large can of worms that you can go off into any area and be there for a while and discovering information that is a barefaced lie that they taught us in school. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I it's just amazing when you start to do the research and the things that you were told and the things that you took a test for and somebody gave you an A on, and then you come back and research and do just a curse here. You scratch the surface, and you find out that everything that you were tested on, that you has been misled, false, a lie, and then it forces you to do a little more digging, and then you go, really? And then you do a little more digging and a little more, and it just, you had to stop yourself or you
you'll seem to fall off into another world.
Yes.
And you just cannot believe that the powers to be, the international bankers, and the so-called United States of America, Inc., would tell such a barefaced lie and have this country in such a falsehood of history and the cover-up of all the dirt and violence to this country and the inhabitants of the country. So let's start out, Roy. I think I love to tell you to set years up. And when I say we need to pound on the years 1850 to 1870, and the Gullah Wars were a part of that. And I would like for you to kind of take off and let me know what you have to offer. Where did you get your information? And let's deal with it in conversation.
I would like to go back a little bit and lay the foundation, and that foundation is the Louisiana Purchase, and and because that lays the foundation to all of those things that happened. Louisiana Purchase was like 1802, and I believe Napoleon. He sold him a pig in the poke. Basically, he sold the French Quarter to the United States and told them they was getting land from New Orleans straight up to Mississippi, all the way to the West Coast.
Yes.
And what happened was, after that purchase, the president I think it was Jefferson at that time, was supposed that deal was supposed to have been such a good deal. He supposedly tricked Napoleon. That's the story. That's the way my research reported it. That was such a good deal. He made such a good deal for America. I'm not America, United States.
Yes, brother. I'm just getting ready to stop you. Yes. Well, that's so important. Yep. All right, go ahead.
It is. And so, I started with Minnesota. I'm gonna tell you how I got what hit me. a conversation I was having about the natives up here, and I had watched some things on TV how the Dakota Indians up in this, and I'm saying that Dakota Indians because that's the way we were taught.
Yes.
How they were mistreated. They were their land was taken. All the trading posts were full of food, and they were starving.
Yes.
And they went and asked for. They said, "Well, we got money, but we can't. Y'all say we have money, but we can't use it. Y'all got food, you won't feed me. You know what's going to happen? Men who have hungry children are going to go get some food."
Yes.
So what I did was I researched the Dakota Indians, and as soon as I researched Dakota Indians, Lewis and Clark showed up on my screen, and that threw me back to the Louisiana Purchase.
Wow.
So that's how. And so, of course, my historical perspective was the Louisiana's Purchase. The Lewis and Clark expedition started in New Orleans. And I don't know where I got that from, but that's what I believed until I did my research and found out that Lewis and Clark expedition started, quote unquote, at the gateway to the west, which is Ferguson.
Ferguson, Missouri.
Ferguson, Missouri.
Wow.
St. Louis, Missouri. There you go.
Wow.
And what's so ironic was I went to the arch and stood underneath it. I have pictures under the arch.
I've been there also. Yep.
And I looked west, and it never dawned on me, how the Creator puts us in places. And then when I hit that research, because it started, they left it took them 2 years to travel up the Missouri River. All the way to the west coast. And these Lewis and Clark one of them was considered such a great quote unquote pathfinder. But my understanding and based on some information that I've acquired, he had 31 people with him, including Sacagawea, who was native, in order to make it through these territories. And they were territories. Minnesota was a territory.
Yes.
I think that was Indian lands. It wasn't even a territory then. It was just Indian.
It was called It was called Indian Territory, wasn't it?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
And so I wasn't even sure that Lewis and Clark came up this way, but apparently they did, and they was part of some other treaties, and they mapped out all this land. And they went west, supposedly on a goodwill mission. The president told them to make sure they were on a goodwill mission. And basically, they were telling everybody, "Look, we
love you.
United States of America now owns this land, and we're taking it." And that was their message. And of course, they were kind of met with some hostilities. So, in the terms of the Rod March show, they had to take mulattoes with them in order to make sure everything went right.
Yes, sir. All right, keep going, brother. You taking the lid off. Let's deal with it. All right.
So then, of course, one of the first things that I did was I looked up the fort that's here. There's a fort here, and anytime you fly into Minneapolis, you go right over what is called Fort Snelling.
Okay.
So of course, my initial understanding of all these forts and they run from St. Louis, Camp Wood, all the way to the West Coast. You'll find historical sites where the United States Cavalry set up forts to move settlers. To protect settlers is what they say.
And what was a settler? That was a isolated term that they used in historically, as they say in historical revisionism. What was a settler and what was a settler? You just tell us.
Well, most of the time they were basically land thieves coming in to take land from that they didn't own and set up. They were basically Europeans moving west.
Yes.
As St. Louis was the gateway to the west, they were moving west.
Yeah.
The historical perspective is that, I guess, on the other side of the proclamation line, they were so crowded that they started moving people west of that, and that's why, you know, we're called the Midwest, and we were the West, and now we're the Midwest, and when you look at the map, you think, how is this Midwest? But in any event, that's a whole nother issue. But as the settlers moved, and the occupants, the indigenous people of the time, became alarmed, then they needed to send somebody out there to do what they did.
Yes.
And supposedly to protect them. I mean, when I read what happened in the Dakotas, South Dakota, and all of that was Indian territory,
yes,
for lack of a better term. And
about what? About 6? Was it about, or maybe a couple of more that was in this territory after the smoke cleared? We talk about North and South.
Oklahoma, North and South Dakota, Minnesota,
yes,
Colorado, yes, Montana,
yes, Wyoming.
Idaho, yes,
Wyoming, yes,
Idaho, all the way
yes,
to the West Coast. All the way
okay,
to the West Coast. And then what really alarmed me, and I really, you know, I don't know, at the time, I just, when you're being taught something as a child, you're so eager to learn. You listen to what they're telling you, and they seem to never talk about the land that was south of the Louisiana Purchase. And so, you know, you understand now that was all Spain and other countries, Mexico, exactly. And
yes,
they didn't talk about those things. I mean, we talk about the Alamo in Texas, and we learned a few things, but all of those things were after what Lewis and Clark did. And as I digested this information, it reminded me of a military expedition. First, you send out the scout. The scouts go out and scout out everything, and then they go back and report. And then after the scouts report, you send in the troops, and you have a quote unquote accurate accounting of what's already there, so that you know what you need to do to take it, if that's what if that's your mission. And that's basically what happened. They took it. I
think you missed one step in that invasion, and that is the Christians and the Bible thumpers. They would always send them in after the explorers go in. Then they would send these Bible thumpers in talking about Jesus and spreading the word, and know which territory would believe in Christianity and then the area that would not. So when the troops showed up, they knew where the enemies were. Well, they all were enemies to the troops, but they knew where the good enemies were and the bad enemies. Then they went in and began to set up these forts in the good side to care them, and then use the good side to attack the bad side. That's a military strategy. And from there, we have this so-called melting pot in the United States that's just really out to lunch. But go ahead. I didn't mean to stop your trend of thought, but I wanted to be sure that we brought in them nuns and them Bible-thumping, jackleg-ass preachers. We had to bring them in. And that's Ron March. And that's Ron March saying that. I want to make it clear, I'm the one calling them jackleg-ass preachers, so you don't say that our guest did it. And I'll try to refrain from that approach. Go ahead, good brother.
That was always part of the process. I mean, even up here, the Dakota, the term supposedly means ally, and what they did was it was a shame. It was a shame and a disgrace, and they really don't want to talk about it. Every time they talk about it, the end result was they gave them a casino. And that, I mean, if you look at what happened now, they gave them a casino. But before that, they did everything in their power to dismantle their government, to dismantle the people, and to kill come up as they could.
Yes.
They win. There was a big war. That's what when you started talking about the timing. In 1862, there was a Dakota War, and they had signed these treaties. And of course, as I told you before, I discussed when I read treaties, and I couldn't believe every time I read a treaty, all treaties started out with peace and friendship, and then the treaty made it seem as if the native population, the indigenous people, were always at war with each other.
Yes.
And then they would make deals with the United States government.
There you go.
But the government never brought anything to the table.
Yes. Something like a mortgage today. They claim and take your house with a foreclosure, but they didn't put anything on the table when you purchased the house.
And
so
then
you're totally
correct. Every treaty leads you to believe that one indigenous group couldn't get along with the other.
Yes. And there was always a clause in the treaty that if you would fight each other, we had the right. We, the United States government, would come in, settle the discrepancy, and then they would have to pay by giving up land and territory to the good Europeans and settlers who settled the war or settled the conflict. I've read that.
Every treaty was usually based on hunting and fishing rights.
Yes. Yes.
And it never discussed. So, what you have to ask yourself is, how did these people survive before the settlers and the United States government got there without killing themselves? Well, they must have had some type of agreement already in place. And then what really hit me, based on my knowledge that this was some, and I want to use the term Moors. These natives had Moorish background, and so then my brain said, how can these be Moors and do what they did, and
to their own people?
How did they survive prior to? Because what really amazed me was there's no records of anything that happened prior to Europeans coming here. And I understand why. You discussed that in your last show, that they always base history based on them. So you always base history based on them, then, the Bible says in the beginning God created. Well, we all know that before God created, in the Bible there was something else that's not there. And it's similar. All of these tribes existed harmoniously all that time. They had to. Their population grew. They didn't kill each other until
till that settler showed up.
Until the settlers showed up.
That's right.
The settlers showed up. But that's a digestive information based on how when you start reading and understanding what this research that's a question that I would, if I was ever in a place where a historian got up and tried to run some crap at me, that would be my question. How did they do it before y'all got there?
Mm-hmm.
And of course he's gonna have a problem answering that question.
And rather not have you ask it, because you're gonna disrupt the entire presentation.
So all of the information is so powerful. Like I kind of remember the lawsuit that the Sioux put on the United States government back in '78. I kind of remember hearing about it. They did a lawsuit for the Black Hills. Now, we understand that where the Black Hills and because you talked about this in one of your shows, Mount Rushmore, all of that land was Sioux land.
Okay.
And they had a treaty in what year? 1856, 1858.
Yep. There you go.
They had a treaty that
Yes.
all of that land was theirs. The United States government said, we don't want it. It's worthless. We don't want it. Y'all can have it.
Yes.
And that was considered sacred Sioux land.
Yes.
And
Okay.
what did they find? And what did they find on that land? Gold.
I think gold. Yes. What did they say?
went,
Gold in them dar hills, and they told everybody
gold.
to get out there.
There you go. They found gold and went out there. And the president quietly, the Sioux complained and complained that y'all, this is our blah blah blah. And the president at the time, in 1858 or whatever that timing, right around that time, turned his back and said, "Go on out there and get that gold."
Yes, and he also said, "Do not run them off the land because they will come back. So I want you to kill them, because if they ever take us to court, we will never be able to win a court battle because the treaty says it belongs to them. So you must kill them and get them out of there. So burn, loot as you get them away, because, you know, most of those massacres from the military, they was done when the warriors and the young bucks were off hunting. So they would wipe out the wives, the children, and the old folks, and then they would ambush the other ones when they came back."
Well, I would ask your. There's a Sioux Nation Black Hills Act. I'm going to refer them to research it and read it. It's from 1986. And if you go back and read it, if you can pull it up. It's called. I'm gonna repeat it because I'm looking at it right now. I pulled up. I got a lot of pages open on my computer, so we can go there if we get a call or somebody. You know, I don't consider myself. I do research. I don't know what extensive research means when you introduce me. I don't know what that means. I'm gonna tell you, I do research and I scratch. I got a bald spot growing in the top of my head, but I want people to read it for themselves. It's called the Sioux Nation Black Hills Act, and it talks about everything I just said. So I don't want them to think that I'm making up something that's not true. I might have used my own words to explain it, but if you read it for yourself. It talks about everything, what they did, how they took the land, and the bottom line was they offered them $17 million or $1 billion, something of that nature, and they put it in the United States Indian something, I can't think of the exact term, and the Sioux Nation refused to take the money.
Why would they do that?
No, because they said if we take the money, we lose our rights to the land. And we want the land and the value that you stripped from it. We don't want the money.
Wow.
And to this day, according to what I read, to this day, that money is still growing compound interest. I think it was $17 million. It's over $1 billion to this day. Supposedly in the U.S. Indian Affairs. And I tried to look that up to see if it was in there, and there is a Indian Affairs, but I couldn't find anything. I went there to dig it, and I knew I was coming on. I would have liked to talk to him, but I didn't do it. I didn't try to get in touch with him. But according to what I read, that money is still sitting there. All of the North Dakota Sioux refused to take any of the money.
All right. Now listen to this. This may be where that act came from that you're looking for. Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868.
Right.
The United.
I've got that up too.
Okay. The United States.
Go ahead.
Let me run this. United States agreed the Sioux held sovereign rights to the Black Hills. And 1866, the Sioux Indians attacked a supply train traveling on the Bozeman Trail in December. General Sherman, that was a dog in his heart, responded on behalf of the United States Army. We must act. And I'm gonna. Those are just the headlines of where I'm looking at it, and I'm gonna try and get some information. There we go. Once you tap onto it, it tells you about it. So when they attacked that trail, United States claims that they had violence. And this is when they come in and take land and then move Indians to a jail that we call a reservation. See, we look at a reservation as something the Indians wanted, but a reservation, none of them wanted to be moved to reservations. In historical revisionism, they make it look like that they was doing the Indians a favor by putting them on a reservation, but that was really a prison camp. Just like they got set up now throughout the United States. They got these concentration camps set up that they can move a lot of people into these areas and be able to feed them and keep them under wraps where they can watch them. Now, 1862, they talk about the gold was found in Montana. The U.S. began building the Bozeman Trail. Why were they so far out? Through the Sioux territory, just like you said, as well as Army forts along the trail, both actions being in direct contravention of the United States 1851 Fort Laramie Treaty. And I believe that's what
I'm looking at the Fort Laramie Treaty, 1868. Of course, we talked about what it always talks about peace. Article 1, from this day forward, all war between parties to this agreement shall forever cease. The government of the United States desires peace, and its honor is hereby pledged to keep it. The Indians desire peace, and they now pledge their honor to maintain it. If bad men among the whites and other people are subject to the authority of the United States shall commit any wrong upon person or property of the Indians, the United States will, upon proof to the agent, forward to the Commissioner of the Indian Affairs. That's what I was telling you. That's Article 1. That's Article 1. That's every treaty. Treaty starts just like I done read about 5 treaties. Every one of them said the same thing. First article always talks about peace. Always, and then it always talks about natives fighting natives. Yes. They always give the cavalry an out that they came out and settled the issue. I'm looking at here Grand Council of 6,000 tribes. That's a lot of tribes at Bear Butte, Butte, the sacred mountain of the Cheyenne. Crazy Horse, Red Cloud, Sitting Bull, among the great leaders, pledged to end further encroachment of Sioux territory by the whites. Now, I need to know where Bear Butte is. And you think about Butte, Montana, Butte.
Lord, help us.
That's
and
Butte,
the way
now, what are they building right now? The United States government and the Congress and the president. The president just vetoed what they're trying to build right now through that territory, the oil pipeline.
That new pipeline. That's right.
That's correct. That's correct. And the only reason I know about it, my son came all the way here from South Carolina and went up there and worked on it. He couldn't handle it, so he went back to South Carolina. He went
Unbelievable.
up there and worked on that pipeline, and I asked him when he came back, what did he see up there? And it's nothing. There's nothing.
Nothing up there. And that's nothing. Montana.
Yep.
That was
Montana.
Yep.
I didn't know Montana was that close until I went to Rushmore, and I drove across South Dakota, and I saw the Black Hills. And there's a sign when you see those. It's like those old movies where it says "No gas for the next 300 miles." There's a sign like that. There's a sign like that, and they were literally correct. If you don't have enough gas to get, you're gonna run out. Yes. And I mean, these people drive 10 hours to go to the doctor.
Man, oh man, oh man! Now
it's amazing. It's amazing.
Why did they build or why did they construct Mount Rushmore? Do you have any idea? Or what does your heart tell you? Now,
I know what my heart tells me. They took that land and they wanted to, and they knew that they couldn't do nothing with it, and so they constructed a monument. What I did see was they do have another monument for Crazy Horse that they were working on, that is probably 10 miles away from where Mount Rushmore is. And it's kind of up in the mountains. You're down, you go to a town, and then you drive a few, 15 miles, and then you're there, and it's a park. It's like a state park. And when you look at it, you kind of figure, you ask yourself, why? In the middle of nowhere, why would they put this here?
Yes. Yes.
And I didn't get into that as deep because I was really looking at what happened up here in Minnesota, where they tried, convicted, and hanged 39, the largest number of natives ever hanged in this country were hanged in Minnesota at one time.
And they were sent, and the president at that time was Stankin Lincoln, and he used the Labor Code to justify, because he called them combatants. Because whatever he wanted to do up in that territory, these 39 people did not like it, which made them combatants. So if you read the first 5 articles of the Labor Code, you'll see where that you can hang or not hang, you can punish combatants and supporters of combatants if you're at war. And they definitely declared war on the Indians. That's why the treaties and the money and all of this so-called reparations is being put out there today, because they did declare war on the Indians. But what baffles me is this Grand Council of 6,000 tribes.
Right.
That's a lot of people, man. A tribe, 6,000?
And that's when I digest what was happening with the tribes.
Yes.
And then I compare it to our the tribe has different tribes with different dialects and those types of things. And then I add in my thimbleful of knowledge about the Moors, and I wanted to put this on the table, because as we talk about Moors and represent, and we, I told you I found a chief. He was dressed in native garb.
Yep.
And he had a fez.
Wow.
And it just blew me away. He was wearing a fez with a feather sticking out of the top. And it blew me away. It blew me away. And he looked like I took his face and removed it from the picture. And if you looked at his face and compared him to any brother on the street, he looked just like any brother on the street.
Wow. Well, let's go.
Go ahead. But
let's go back to Africa. United States today has a tremendous problem dealing with Africa because there's so many tribes in Africa. They need to find a way to dissolve the tribes, coming back to what we're looking at today. And if they can dissolve the tribes, they can unite and start taking what the resources out, because they can get around the tribes. Now, with the Indians, so-called Indians over here, or the black folks over here, we started out the same way with tribes. But they have made tribes be such a negative word, as if you are a native swinging in a tree with Tarzan, that we refuse to acknowledge that we are a tribe. But the word tribe is the same as a corporation, a state, a government, a family. All of those words are in unison as the same, synonymous, because these tribes were ran by Big Mama. Because
I was waiting for you to go there, because that's the only way I can understand. It made sense.
Yes.
They were all run by Granny.
Yes, and Granny wasn't taking no lift.
They were all autonomous, and nobody challenged one against the other.
No. And Granny could start a war with the Indian group or stop a war with the Indian group. And I know they fought, but I was told that death and murder was not the order of the day, because Granny and the Supreme Court, I don't know what they would call it in these tribes, but they had a council of Supreme Court, all ran by women. And the women refused to tolerate bloodshed because their men were being killed. They didn't start killing outright till that European showed up. Now, put that in your pipe and smoke it. See, when I get these thoughts from my ancestors, I roll with them. And I try and find history or his story to deal with it, but they never tell it the way it is. It's always in reverse. Because I'm sitting there now looking at that 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty, brought peace between the Sioux and the United States government by giving the Sioux, by guaranteeing that the Sioux had absolutely undisputed use of the Great Sioux Reservation. Now listen to that.
Right.
Great, yeah. What the hell? Yeah. Now they all came from the South. See, I was told that my ancestors came out of Tennessee, my grandfather, and their mothers and fathers on both sides of my daddy. They all came out of Tennessee. And the Tennessee is, when you look up the Indians, quote unquote, of Tennessee, you'll discover Choctaw is the ones that ran that area down there. But today they were pushed out with the Indian Removal Act. That's what I'm going next to study, the Indian Removal Act, and find out where it started, where it came from, and where were they going to move these people. Who ever heard of such madness? Who would want to take the land and move people off of it if it didn't belong to you?
Supposedly, here's the part of the answer to your question about the Black Hills, Mount Rushmore, and what went on.
Okay.
Of course, we already know they took it, and the mountain was a route for the Lakota leader, Chief Black Elk. And supposedly he took a spiritual journey through there. And then after a series of military campaigns, the United States, quote unquote, asserted control over the area. What does that mean? And then wait, we just talked about it. The Treaty of Fort Laramie, 1868.
Yes, I just had it up. Yes.
And Fort Laramie is the Black Hills, is Mount Rushmore, is gold, is once they gave them that land and took it back.
It says the treaty proved to be one of the most controversy in the history of United States Indian affairs. It ended the war between the Sioux and United States, but it split the Alago, I'll just call them that, Oglala, Oglala nation. You see that? Into friendlies, willing to work with United States. There's some Moncton niggas. They want to work with the United States government, and the hostility with whom the United States banded trade and set the legal.
We back to chaos and create chaos and
yes, CCS, crisis, chaos, and solution.
There you go.
Man, oh man.
And part of the solution is ethnic cleansing.
Yes.
Ethnic cleansing is always a good solution to handle these problems.
Yes, and they love to stay away from ethnic cleansing in the United States. They like to talk about genocide, which is such a large word that we always relate that overseas because they line up 15, 200, 2,000 and just murder them. So that would be genocide. But we can look at the bad food we get, the bad water we get, what I just read earlier when they cut off the water, so the sanitation is bad. And then the whole country of London in 1600 had a black plague because they couldn't wash their nasty ass. And now they're cutting off our water over here to hope that we die off. Man, this is unbelievable, man.
I read a word and I read it. I keep seeing it. It keeps coming up. The word is secession. CESSATION, or secede. And basically, I looked it up in Black's dictionary, and it means to take.
And they make it sound like a friendly move that I'm going to do you a favor.
It means to stop. It make it sound like it means to stop, but it means in Black's Law Dictionary, it said it means to take. I secede your property.
Yes.
Now, if I secede your property, I'm taking it.
Wow. I saw a cowboy movie where they had a treaty with the Navajo. And the Navajo was not supposed to fight each other, and they definitely was not supposed to fight the white settlers. Well, one of the generals in the Union Army, who was in 1860 and 61 when the war broke out, he was a Confederate. So his strategy was to start an Indian battle in the Texas area where the troops had to move to Texas to stop it, and he could take his troops and attack Fort Schelling or Fort whatever that is out there, Fort Sumter, and get over. So what he did, he took his crooks and went out and took some rifles and hid them out on the Indian reservation, went to the colonel in charge of the area and told him, from the general now, that white settlers were murdered and killed and that they stole guns, and we believe it's on the Indian reservation, and we think it's in a certain area. And we demand that you send out a crew to find it. So they went to the chief because there was so much peace. They tried to do it right. The chief got upset because you're accusing me of something that I know we didn't do. So the guy said, well, we got to take a look. He said, take a look. They went up there, man, and found them damn rifles. The general had already sent in a secret troops in order, if there be any trouble, kill them all anyway. And what they did, they moved all of those Navajo Indians in that area and moved them to a reservation. And they knew that the Indians on the reservation was going to fight back because nobody could live in the area where they sent them if they didn't get the proper food and blankets and stuff like that. So as soon as the Indians came off that reservation, everybody was wiped out. And United States cavalry took over the land that the Indians were on and lived happily ever after. Turned the settlers in there and told the settlers, the land is up. We're going to sell it for $3 an acre or $2 an acre. So come on in and take over everything.
It seems like I remember seeing several cowboys. I remember if it's not Laramie, they usually have a place in there called Fort Laramie.
Yes. And it's always a peaceful place.
And we never, those words, you're looking at TV and you don't associate those with actual places. But here I found another spot that says this was talking about this treaty, the Fort Laramie Treaty. The treaty lasted only for the Black Hills, only until gold was discovered in the Black Hills in 1874. The rush of miners to the Black Hills started. The last of the Plains Wars, including the Battle of Little Bighorn.
Yes. I told
the
you.
Sioux Nation has never acknowledged the loss of the Black Hills. Now, here's that Supreme Court decision in 1980 in an 8-1 decision. The Supreme Court upheld the previous court's claims decision from 1979, which ruled the Sioux Indians were entitled to an award of $17.5 million plus 5% interest per year since 1877, totaling $106 million. And right now, it's over like $50 billion, and because they've never cashed the check.
Damn. Well, listen to this. In 1877, Congressional Act of 1877 violated the Laramie Treaty by requiring the Sioux to relinquish the Black Hills and 22.8 million acres. That's a lot of land. 22.8 million acres of their surrounding territory. At least in less than 20 years, the Sioux Nation shrunk from 134 million acres to less than 15 million acres.
Now,
man,
there's your Mount Rushmore.
Wow.
That's right. There's your Mount Rushmore.
I was told that mountain. Who was Rushmore? Do you have any idea? I don't know, but I just thought maybe you had ran across some information on it. But like a brother said last week, MORE or MOOR and Rushmore.
There you go.
I read
that. Yep.
Yeah, and I read where Lincoln with the libel code went out there and all of the artifacts. They said there were some huge Olmec heads on the mountains. And they went up there and changed the heads to them peckerwood that you got up there now.
Well, it says that Charles E. Rushmore was some type of attorney for whom Mount Rushmore is named. Now it don't mean nothing. It don't mean nothing. But I'm
just getting ready. I'm getting ready to say, what the hell did he do to get a mountain and all them names on pictures?
Right. They don't say nothing, but that's what they got to put what they can to do what they can.
Now that would be another avenue. If you went there to search that cat Rushmore, you'd open up another can of worms and be there for another couple of months or weeks trying to figure out all that information as to who was he, who told him he had a mountain. Think about that for a minute.
Right.
What did he do to warrant a mountain? You see what I'm saying? This research is, man, somebody said it, and I'll repeat it right now. There should be a multitude of trophies and monuments in Washington, D.C., Pennsylvania Avenue today, asking for our black folks' forgiveness for what that peckerwood has done to us in our history. They should be asking forgiveness.
We don't even understand that the natives that they were black, that we were them, because
that was us. I know.
Even that. When I went out there and looked at them and we went and looked, and me and my wife, we went and looked, and that's the first thing she said. Well, boy, some of these natives is darker than me.
Yes.
And the kids don't understand that.
I know. I told you. We've been brainwashed so complete. They spent a lot of money. I'm 78 years old, Rory. I got out of prison. I got out of the military in I got out of prison in 1964. I went in 58. My serial number, RA1661296. How the hell do I know that? I'm like Jason Bourne. Who put that in my head that I can still remember that number?
Right.
And if they're did it to me with old equipment, think about what they're doing to your children today with all this new equipment. We got a problem.
Well, I never. Everybody told me when you're gonna have to learn history, and I did everything in my power not to know history.
Yes.
Then when I got to school, nobody asked me history. Nobody cared.
They
and I
didn't
went,
care.
oh shoot, and then now the importance is so overwhelming that it just you got to know the history to understand how we got to where we are. You got to get this. You got to understand this. This is so important. Just knowing what happened here in Minnesota. I know up north up by Duluth, there's what's called the Iron Range, and there's ore, taconite. And if you look on the periodic table, I believe taconite is one of those elements on the periodical table. Mm-hmm. And they were mining it up there and shipping it out through Duluth, because I couldn't figure out. I drove up to Duluth. First, I was scared to go. I'm in Minneapolis. I've been here all this time. I never went to Duluth. I always thought it was like 10 hours away. Well, it's like an hour and a half. An hour if you're speeding.
Okay.
So we rode up to Duluth, and you ride by, and you see the Great Lake. And when you see the Great Lake, you see all this big old port. And I mean, this port runs basically on both sides, the Wisconsin side and the Minnesota side. And if you don't know what money looks like, you don't think it's money. And it only took me a couple of times to go up there. The first time I just looked and I went, wow. One time I saw a ship, not a boat, a ship coming in, and I looked out into the water and there was 12 of them waiting. The big ones, long big ones. And I watched one come through. They opened the bridge and it came through and I went, okay. Now I know what's happening up here. There's lots of money in Duluth. Lots and lots of money.
Now, what is the industry? Where does the money come from?
The mining, the ore, the iron ore.
So jobs should be frequent up there. Well, if you worked in the mines.
If you worked in the mine, they took care of you. And then what happened was the rest of the world caught on. And remember now, there's a unique feature about the Great Lakes up here. You don't swim in that water. It's never warms up. It's always cold. And the current is always flowing. And it almost never freezes.
Because of the currents. What lake are we talking about? I want
to say that ain't Michigan. What lake?
No, Ontario.
Oh.
No, I don't know. I'm just asking. I don't know. But we can find out when we go on break here in another minute or so.
I'm looking at it. Yeah, we close. Yeah, we at the top of the hour. We did very well. We did very well.
Now, when we come back, I got a piece here on 1889 after the Sioux refused to sell 9 million additional acres of their reservation to the United States government. The government passed a Sioux Act, and I'm going to stop right there. They came up with, we're going to take a 10-minute break. Yes.
Yeah, all right.
Okay? All right, good people. And if you got any phone calls, I want you to, questions, you can, call in. But we got a good thing going here. This young brother is kind of heavy, trying to get like he knows something, but he's into it, and I'm enjoying him. And we'll be right back. So let me catch up on this piece.
Superior, Lake Superior.
Lake Superior. All right.
I should have remembered that because it's called Superior, Wisconsin, but it's Lake Superior is what is the name of the Great Lake that Duluth is on.
All right, all right. Now you never hear too much about Lake Superior. Maybe it's because we're not there. But the only city, or the best city related to the Great Lakes, I guess you know, and I'm going to tell you, is Detroit, Michigan. And the reason, let me tell you why. Because you can reach all 5 lakes from Detroit. I can go downtown and get on a boat, and I can come to Minnesota. Or I can go to England, because I can go out to the Detroit River, up through the St. Lawrence Seaways, up through Nova Scotia, and go right out into the Atlantic Ocean.
But I hear what you're saying. I would probably say that the people in Chicago might have a
might disagree.
Yes, that would be my only statement to what you just said. I agree with what you said, but I would say that the Chicago people might not buy that one. But okay.
Okay, no big deal. No big deal. Okay, but I was told that, and that's why I tell you when I got that information was when Clinton was in office. He spent billions of dollars updating the St. Lawrence Seaway. They say it's more beautiful than the Panama Canal because the ocean is higher than United States or something like that, or vice versa. I'm not sure. But you got those locks that drops it down, and that Detroit River comes into Detroit. Now, we can go to Chicago up Michigan, Lake Michigan, and Lake Michigan, Chicago can come through Detroit and go up to, go out to the rest of them. But I know that due to the they building new highways, and the new highways are coming out of the Blue Water Bridge, which is up near Port Huron, and it's going all the way to Texas. And they're going to use the seaways to bring in all the product and goods and what have you, and they're going to blast it right out of Detroit, hit the expressways, and go straight down to a big city down in Texas. And I did a show on that about 5 years ago, and they got it already mapped out. The farmers are already going to court to try and stop them because they're taking at least 10 acres on each side of this highway 69, which turns into 30-something, and they're going to make 8 lanes going and coming out of Port Huron, Michigan, down to Texas. So, I can go back and do it, but that ain't no big deal. I didn't want to go there right now. I wanted to talk with you on this 1889, and when you hear it, you'll see why I want to bring it up. And that is after the Sioux refused to sell 9 million additional acres of their reservation to the United States government, Congress passed the Sioux Act. This act redefined the requested 9 million acres as surplus land. Now, dig that. That's how they circumvent these treaties. Open to white settlers under the Dawes Act, and divided the Lakotas into 5 separate reservations: Standing Rock, Cheyenne River, Pine Ridge, Upper and Lower Buell, Brule. The remaining land was given to new states of North and South Dakota. Any Indian who refused to be confined to reservations were declared hostile. The 9 million acres was then opened up for public purchase for white settlers, ranchers, and homesteaders. Now put that in your pipe and smoke it, man. That's disgraceful. But
we already know that's their only way. They never came to the table with nothing.
Yes. Well, I got some more information that would be interesting and vital to our discussion. And that is when we talk about the proclamation line, when you look it up, They give a big history on the proclamation line, but they never show that they supported it or there was punishment for crossing the proclamation line. Now, did you run into the proclamation line, or are you aware of the proclamation line?
I'm aware of it, and I looked at it, and before it was brought to my attention, I had never heard of it. And so that means, as I was researching now, it came to my attention. I had never heard of it.
All right.
Never heard of it.
Now, the proclamation line, if it was a what can I call it? A legal. Well, it was legal. If it was a something that was going to help the conditions of the United States, how in the hell did Lewis and Clark get all the way into Ferguson, Missouri, and then head out through Minnesota and all the Dakotas? Because that proclamation line is in place today. 1763, I think the date of it was, that they were not settlers. They named them settlers, frontiersmen, pilgrims, were not allowed to cross the proclamation line. Now, did you see that, or did you run into that?
Now, President Jefferson, that's why when you go back to 1802.
Yes.
The Louisiana Purchase.
Yes.
And the boondoggle that they took where they bought a street and took the land.
Yep.
Once they did that, I can only digest the information and come to a conclusion that they decided they was going to take that land, and there you go with Lewis and Clark going into, because they supposedly did not know what they had just bought.
Yes.
Correct. And or took. Whatever way you want to look at it.
But I think that they circumvented the proclamation because it did not say it restricted Peckerwoods from crossing it. There's no other way of looking at it. So Lewis and Clark should have, could have, and maybe had some black blood in them as mulattoes, or the leaders, the true leaders of the expedition, like you said, 31 parties were involved. They were put on Front Street as being the leaders of it, but we know now that Lewis and Clark did all the work.
Well, when you have revisionism, Lewis and Clark might not have did nothing but go.
That's right.
And everybody else did all the work, and then when you rewrite history, you can put in there, you can say anything you want. Just like when we talked about the Dakotas up here, they convicted. They wanted to hang 301, and supposedly Lincoln saved 265 of them, and the rest of them all got hanged. Now I just read, and they use a term called mixed bloods. Now,
yes, I've read that.
What's a mixed blood? That's your mulatto?
Yes, but if it was mixed with Indian, it meant one thing, European, or if it was mixed with if the Indian was mixed with Americans. And that's what blew me out of the box, because I said, wait a minute. If they're calling them pilgrims, settlers, frontiersmen, who in the hell are the Americans? But I found out later that those were the true inhabitants. Those were the indigenous ones of this land. And they labeled them without giving them a proper name. They labeled them copper people. Man, oh man, oh man. Now, here's what I want to go ahead.
Well, it's the 9,000 acres you just talked about, and all of that, the Sioux conflict.
9 million acres.
Excuse me, 9 million acres.
Let's not get to.
Man, when we even think about an acre, when you think about 1 acre.
It's mind-boggling.
You can't imagine 9 million acres.
Nope. You can't even get it fixed in your head. When you
say that, I said 1,000, and I caught myself, and you caught me, and you can't even imagine 9. The native population own 50 million acres.
How did they get it? You see what I'm saying? They had to be, quote unquote, Moors, and I hate to keep using that term, but they had to be Moors. Because we know the Indian was not here first. There's no such thing as an Indian. And in his books and in his law books, he makes it clear that an Indian was a misnomer used because they didn't know what to label those people because their names were difficult to pronounce. I have proof of that from Barron's Legal Dictionary, BARRON''S. Barron's.
I heard of Barron's.
Yes. They tell you when you go to Indian Affairs, look up Indian Affairs in there, and I don't have a copy with me, but if you go and look it up, it'll tell you that the word Indian was only used as a convenience because there were so many that they could not pronounce. So they just threw them all in one bucket and called them Indians.
Well,
I think they're throwing all of the copper people in a bucket in America now. Go with me. And they're calling them Moors. But we all know that Moors, or so-called people of color, were all over the earth in the beginning. The Bible even runs into that.
Let's go back to your logic. Let's go back to your logic statement. All Moors are people of color, but not all people of color are Moors.
Correct. That's
because I'm gonna tell you, when I did my research and my thimbleful, I'm gonna limit myself. This little thimbleful of research.
Yes.
I want to be mad at the Moors.
Yes.
Can you understand that? I am mad. If these people was Moors, I'm mad at them.
Yep. I can agree.
And that's because of the Christian-centered upbringing that I have endured for the 50-some-odd years of my life has structured my mind, just like you remember your number, has structured my mind so strategically that I'm trying to figure out what these people did. They did something. It just ain't coming off the page to hit me, but they had to do something.
All right. Now, I want to go into the Dawes Act, DAWES. Dawes was a individual, Charles Dawes, who was commissioned by the United States, and I believe it was in 1880s, to categorize friendly Indians. Look it up. That's what he was supposed to.
I'm there. I'm with you. I'm already there. There.
And he labeled them 5 tribes. Now, tribes were set up by the Moorish nation of the earth, which was Days, Els, Bays, Alis, and Als. You got it? I was told that King George, that you read a lot, was very instrumental in the United States. Well, England itself was very instrumental in the United States, setting up and destroying and ripping off the people. A couple of things, but I want to mention now that King George III, who signed that proclamation of the Proclamation Line, who set up what we know today as the 13 colonies, he was a Moor, but he was a Dey, D-E-Y. Now, why is that important? Because the Deys were made up mostly of mulattoes. And they were all rich. There was a lot of money in that Dey, let's call it the Dey Nation. And these dirty Moors, wanted to set up a nation where they would be in control forever, So they engineered the United States of America to set up what we know today as a white supremacist government. And the Days, who live right now up in Winchester County, Winchester County up in New York, that they get away with murder up there. Nobody goes up. Nobody talks to them. They're rich as cream. And I wanted to do some research on it, but it just came to me that they live up in that Winchester County. And I got some cats that know about that. It's called Winchester County. And they are up there, the Days. Now, if you look at it from that perspective, the Days hated all of the other Moors. Now, I'm getting into what you just said, why you are angry, because if you don't separate the Moors or use my formula of all Moors are black, but all blacks are not Moors, you'll get confused. We got some lily white Moors. You can't tell them apart. I told you one time that I know how they could set up a human machine for DNA.
Right.
And that,
right.
And that would be. Do you want to explain that? Did you understand what I said in regards to that?
Keep going. I got L, Day, Bay. What was the other two?
L, Bay, Day, Ali, and
yeah.
And Al, A-L-L. A-L, not A-L-L. A-L.
And the only ones I know of today, I've seen people with the last name D-E-Y.
You have?
Yes.
I've seen
that name. I've seen that name.
Okay.
I haven't seen. The only Bays are people who take that name. I've seen D-E-Y. I know somebody with the last name. I met somebody with the last name Day.
Okay.
And I never drew the line until you explained it, and I heard you explain it before. And when you did, I thought about it. I know some people back in, I believe, Danville with the last name D-E-Y.
Wow.
And Ali, of course, we know that one. Al no, L no. The other three, the only time I've seen that is when someone becomes quote unquote conscious and they assume that title or assume that as part of their name.
Okay. Well, that's why I'm thinking, as you said, Day, because it's only a noble title of nobility. There had to be, or should have been, another name, like March Day. I could call myself Ron March Day, because that title of nobility puts me at a certain plateau where everybody will recognize who I am. You dig?
Right.
Now,
but I want you to keep going because looking at time, we got about a half hour. I want you to keep going.
All right. Well, the Days were completely involved in the structure of United States of America, Inc. Because if you look up the founding dates of all of the 13 colonies, and let's start with the Virginia Company. And there was an Indian company, but that Virginia Company was founded in 1604. What the hell is going on with that? You dig?
Right.
You see? So now when you look that up and deal with it, you'll see where the Virginia Company, and I'm looking at it, the Virginia Company, then there was also a Plymouth Company, was in 1607, established the Powhatan Colony along the Kickapoo River in present-day Maine. However, it was abandoned after 1 year, and the Plymouth Company became inactive. Then with the religious pilgrims, that's another name for Peckerwood, who arrived. Yeah, buddy. Who arrived? I'd have been running with Crazy Horse in them. All right, I'll be nice. It were pilgrims who arrived aboard the Mayflower, a successor company to the to the Plymouth Company eventually established a permanent settlement in Plymouth, Massachusetts in 1620 in what is now New England. So what I'm getting at is this whole concept of United States of America was already put on paper in 1580s and 1590s. And it was done by the Days. Now, think about it. It was done by the Days. And the Days wanted to be super rich, such as the international banksters. Because, when you look at the Rothschilds, all of them sons had big lips and broad noses, and you could almost say that one, I'm looking at his name, I can't call it, but anyway, they said there was some black in the family of the Rothschilds. So let's just go with that and say that they were mulattoes. So they had to be Days because that's where the money was, with the Days. So when they came here and was given, you got to ask the question, who in the hell would give these invaders a contract to set up their own government? And how can they tell England to go to hell when they were slaves, when they were sent over here? So they teach us.
Right.
How you going?
Right.
How can you buy a slave master? It's totally impossible. We can't even do that today. If we don't declare ourselves sovereign and change our name, we can never get away from this European. So the concept of the Siskiyou account, which I talked about last week, that Siskiyou account, it was set up in 1660s. So this whole process was in place way before George Washington started his bull crap up there over in the 13 colonies. But they immediately named the 13 colonies United States of America, and was given in Article 1 of the Constitution, listen carefully, Article 1, Section 8, Paragraph 17. They were given 10 square miles of property to set up the seat of their government. How can that be? Whoever heard of slaves setting up a seat of government? You can't do it.
The irony, there's irony in what you just said. Because you remember that specifically based on the year. There's an it's irony. It can't be by circumstance that year and that act that you just quoted have the same identical number.
Correct.
It can't.
Correct.
It can't be.
Can't be.
I don't believe in luck and chance and I just don't believe in that. The way you, and I know you remember that, and I know how, because I listened to you, and when I logged it in and you put that in, and you go, wait a minute, there's no way.
Yep.
This is not by design.
Yes, it was set up by design. Now I got something else to rock your noggin, and I'm rushing trying to get to it, and I'm missing it. The preamble, what I'm looking for, and you can do it quicker. I'm looking for the preamble to the Constitution of the United States. Now I know what it says. We the people. That's how it starts out.
Right.
Okay.
Right,
now, if you find it, yep. Get it. Preamble. And I got to put Constitution in. Because I can't get tight.
You don't have to put Constitution. If you just put preamble, it'll come up.
All right. All right.
You got it. I'm looking at it. Let's see. Preamble to the United States Constitution.
All right. Now, let's deal with this. Now, listen carefully. The preamble. We, the people of United States. Now, stop right there. What people of United States? We lived in America, okay? Those crooks, was given that seat of government, but there was nobody to work the land. They had a company they had 13 companies. Now, they say we the people. So let's just add of the 13 companies in the United States. which would be Washington, D.C. Now listen again. In order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for United States of America. Where are you at in that preamble, Roy?
MOOR, for a more.
Shit. That's bullcrap. No, I'm not. I thought that was important, but it's not important. This whole Constitution only deals with the government of the United States. That has nothing.
Which is the 10 square miles, Washington, D.C.
Correct. And they're saying in the preamble that we're going to be good guys, going back to what you said about peace and friendship. We're going to be good guys and promote all the blessings and liberty to ourselves and our prosperity.
That's what it says.
Do ordain and establish this Constitution because we're going to live within it for United States of America. Now you tell me, what does that have to do with me and you? Not a damn thing.
And it don't say of, it says.
Well, mine says of.
Yeah, no, you read for. Mine says for. Mine says establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
Okay,
no,
yes. Yes.
At the end.
Yes.
Yeah. It doesn't say it doesn't say of the United States. Establish this Constitution of the United States of America. It says for the United States. So that's the corporation.
Yes. That's my point. So all of this is a scam. Now, we have never seen a real Constitution because it's always in the English, and if you go to history, it says that the original Constitution was in Arabic. I can't read Arabic. I know. Can you read Arabic?
No.
There you go. So what the hell were they talking about? Now, I was told that this is what they called a municipal Constitution, meaning they changed it, put it in anything they want. Because the only thing that holds them to it is the Constitution itself. The what they call Bill of Rights is the only thing that deals with us as Americans. So I'm trying to say to you and the audience that this whole thing that we're in, this whole debacle, this whole hocus pocus trick bag is nothing more than a scam. And they did a damn good job because they taught it to all the people and rewarded the punks and the Uncle Remus and the Toms. And then sick them on us, backed up by corporations of the court. And who and what are the corporations of the court? The Bar Association. What is the bar? Police departments, all of them belong to the Bar Association. British accredited registry.
And if you don't pass that test, you can't get in.
You can't get in. And we have done all of our works trying to get free by using either the Constitution or laws and statutes, not laws, statutes that they created overnight. But there are a multitude of statutes. But I want you to look real fast, Roy, for Rule 5.1. Bring that up. And I'm going to work for it. I'm going to work on it to get it myself. But I know you can do it faster than me. It's called, it's called Rule 5.1. 5.1.
All right, I got ABA Rule 5.1, constitutional challenge to a statute.
Correct. And it's either federal or state. So let's open it up and see what it says. It says,
I got so many pages open.
I know. No, I know. I got mine open. It says, notice by a party that files a pleading, written motion, or other paper drawing into question the constitutionality of a federal or state statute must properly, and I'll stop right there. So all of the so-called laws that you think are laws are definitely not laws, they're statutes. A statute can be written overnight. And a judge, being the crook that he is, representing the bar, will say it's been on the books. Now, how do you deal with that? You challenge it by, or number one, file a notion of constitutional question, stating the question and identifying the paper that raises it. So if you have a motion and you're going to submit a motion for denial of foreclosure, for example, right, and all of the rules and regulations and laws that we think are laws says that you cannot take anybody's property without proper restitution. I can't word it the way it is, but you got to be sure that they get proper restitution. I don't know of anyone that have lost their home in foreclosure received proper restitution. So if you're going to submit a motion, you want to put this ruling in your paperwork as you submit it. Number A federal statute is questioned and the parties do not include the United States, which is, we won't include, one of its agencies or one of its officers or employees in the official capacity. So if you sue Wells Fargo, you want to sue the CEO in his private capacity. That he is using a law or his so-called representatives are going to use a statute that's not really a statute. Now, what makes a statute a law? Do you have any idea, Roy?
Supposedly, when your state legislature votes it and the governor signs it, that's what we're led to believe anyway.
Yeah, that's true. But there's a process. It's not as simple as they write it, he signs it, and it becomes law. No. It states that once you write it, it must be read in each house three separate times. So we're talking about one statute being read 3, 6, 9, 12. 12 times, if I'm counting right. Because you got two houses, and it's got to be read 3 times. I think I'm saying it right. You figure it out.
If you got two houses, the Senate and the House, and it's got to be read 3 times.
In each house.
Well, that's at least 6. That's at least 6 anyway.
All right, we'll go that route. All right, we'll go that route. So, now, you must call in the Attorney General to prove that it was done. He's not coming because he knows he's only living under the color of law. And this challenges his position as Attorney General. He can be recalled if he come in there and say it's a law and he can't prove it. It should be on the books, and he should bring the books in with him, and it's got to be voted on by the majority of each house, read to him 3 times. And I know it doesn't happen because several laws in Detroit were passed at Lansing, the State House, voted on Friday, and put in motion on Monday. How the hell they do
that? They didn't.
That's right. Now, there's another law that you can look up quickly. It's called the Clearfield Doctrine Trust. Have you ever heard of that one?
Yeah, I heard of that one.
All right.
Yes, I have.
Well, you want to submit the Clearfield Doctrine into your paperwork because that means if you have a question, a federal or state question, The Clearfield Doctrine comes in play because it makes all corporations become, I hate to use the word, they become a person. They can't come in as a corporation. So you can get around the part where it says a federal statute, the parties do not include United States or one of its agencies. So let's say we're talking about an agency, whatever it may be. But once you bring up the question of its constitutionality, you use the Clearfield Doctrine to make them come in as individual private persons. So bring the corporation in, but it's got to come in as a private person. And you know it can't talk and can't write, so you automatically win.
Yeah, because it can't be a private person. It's not.
It can't. It's not. It's not. And when they passed that law about 4 years ago, everybody got upset. But they didn't know that was the color of law. It was a statute. And everybody go off on the deep end. What are you worried about? It was a statute.
But there's a way that we confuse the color of law with law.
Correcto. The same way we confuse the straw man, Enelexis, I can't pronounce it, ENSLEGIS, we confuse that with being us or human beings. And that's a straw man in all capital letters. And if you look it up, it starts out by saying Igus Ligus is a creature now, invented or explored by legal process only. It's only good in legal process. So that means they're not talking to you. They're talking to your birth certificate. That's the legal process because they took it from the county and took it to vital statistics, and they keep it on file as a legal person.
Right. And you ain't no birth certificate.
And I'm not a birth certificate. So if I got to go to jail, give this paper 10 years. Because you can't even talk to me because everything out there is a corporation. Now, you know they're going to fight you when you come in there with this. But it's good to have this knowledge. Read it for yourself. Don't challenge me.
Right.
Because we up against a hocus pocus trick bag. And if we don't know who we're fighting and what we're fighting about and what the mess that they have put us in, we are really in bad shape because we will never figure out what to do and how to deal with it. Now, I got a couple of questions in the chat room. Hollywood, USA has just logged in. All right, Hollywood. How can Native Americans offer anything when they are under the jurisdiction of the United States of America? That's a damn good question. And this is what was that Indian's name in the 60s that they threw in prison?
Russell Means.
Russell Means. I want that person that GEE. Look up Russell Means. You're totally correct. As long as they stay on the reservation, declare themselves Indians, that's just like you. Right. You cannot question anything because you are under the jurisdiction of the United States of America until you get your birth certificate and know what to do with it by declaring yourself the owner of the birth certificate, not the birth certificate. You will always be in the jurisdiction of United States of America. You got that, Roy?
United States for America.
Yes. No, the Constitution is Constitution for America.
For America, right.
Yes.
Okay, yep. So basically, you're part of the corporation.
Yes, that's the bottom line. I got another one here. It says, question is, male of color entitled to law while the squatters are ruling. Whoa, that's kind of out there. I don't get that. Question is, said, go ahead.
I'm not sure what he's asking.
That's what I'm saying. I don't understand where he's going with this. But let me read it again. Question is, male of color, so we talk about black folks, entitled to law while the squatters are ruling. Okay.
Oh, okay. So all right. So if I'm understanding correctly, his question is, the United States of America is acting as a squatter.
Yes.
On property that we own.
Yes. Yes. And they came back with a male of color is not entitled to anything that is not approved by the ruling class. And they got parentheses white. Well, you're totally correct. These are statements. He's not asking questions. And I totally agree with him. But there's a way to get out from under the ruling class, because the ruling class is a fictitious entity known as a corporation. Now let's see if you'll come back with something on that.
But then that's what we've been talking about really all day. All day with all of once the indigenous Indians or whatever you want to call them sign any treaty, that automatically puts a corporation in charge.
Yes.
So they ain't got to bring nothing to the table. Once you sign my treaty, that we as long as I can word it correctly or use the right people to influence you, then once you sign, you're part of you become part of the corporation, and the corporation basically said, I own everything.
Yes. Now let me prove that to you, because when you close on your mortgage, the paperwork is always held by the finger of the realtor that you're working with, because he do not want you to sign any paper out of order. Now the question is, what does that mean? It means that you must sign the promissory note before you sign the mortgage. Why? Because you purchased the house with the promissory note, but you give it to the corporations with the mortgage. If you did it in reverse, the corporation wouldn't have nothing because you haven't purchased anything. I just thought of that while you were talking. And if you doubt me, if you ever go close again, just by accident, knock the papers on the floor, and I'll give you $100 if they don't cancel the closing until the next day or two, because they got to take it back to the corporations and put those papers back in order. And it's a top secret. They don't want nobody to know that.
Right. On top of that, they really don't want you to buy a house and pay cash.
No, they lose and you lose too, because you're giving up but they lose big time because you're only going to pay once, and they cannot get your house.
And they can't do nothing, and when you tell them that, it throws the whole process into a different loop, because they want to know where you're getting the money from first. Because the government now, you can't do no more. If you do over $10,000, you got to tell somebody.
Yes.
If you go to the post office and pull over $3,000 worth of money orders, you got to sign a paper.
Yes, you do. You do.
You got to sign a paper that says that you had over $3,000 worth of cash, and they gave you money orders for more than $3,000. Now you can go there every day and do $1,000 for 4 days in a row and get more of them.
Yes.
But if you do it all at once, they make you sign a document that they make you sign a document.
And they call the IRS and or the CIA and let them know what you just did. Now, this person came back. Now, they must me because they're hitting me right where it hurts. Not hurts, but where I'm teaching. It says, G, still learning. The matriarch we must go back to. And I'm totally in agreement. I've always said that.
Back to Granny's law.
Big Mama. We back to Big Mama. Big Mama's law. Yes. We got to build that up. That's your only protection. That's why they can't break into Africa and steal the way they want to, because the tribe system is what has them by the old kahunas. When they go into the Middle East, those crooks, they can always get a family and then tell the family they're royal. Remember what they did with Osama bin Laden. Before he went into Russia and united with the Taliban, they made him and gave him the honor of being royal family, from being royal family out of Saudi Arabia. He was a member of the Saudi Arabia rich family. They made him that in order for him to go back into Afghanistan and unite those tribes. This is some deep stuff. We all must belong to a tribe. And it's simple if you think about it. The only problem is going to be who's going to be the chief. Well, the matriarch is going to be the chief. I think you.
What a day!
All right.
What a day! What a day! You know, every time I hear her talking to me, telling me 50 seconds and all that, I hear her talking to me.
Yep. I appreciate you, brother. I really enjoyed it. And
me too.
Yep,
I'm looking forward to doing it again. I'm gonna do some more research. We gonna talk and see if we can get another time, Scott, and we can try this another time when we can sit down. And I really enjoyed it. I think you should keep asking your callers to do the research like you did, and call in and let them tell a little bit and give them a little more knowledge base.
I dig it, and I agree. And I'm looking at this G. I'd like for them to call me or go to my website, Ron March Show. Email me. I'm looking at GEE because it look like you on target. I like to talk to you, see what you're all about.